Long before Atlantis sank beneath the ocean's surface, there was Lemuria, a land untouched by war, unspoiled by greed, a place where consciousness pulsed through crystal temples and the wisdom of the stars was etched into living stone. And yet, you've likely never heard its true story. Why? Because Lemuria was never just a myth. It was a mirror of who we were before history began, and perhaps who we are meant to become again. You see, buried beneath the layers of forgotten time lies a story not of technology, but of soul. Not of machines, but of resonance. A civilization not defined by cities or empires, but by frequency and spiritual mastery. Most dismiss Lemuria as a fantasia fable conjured by mystics or fringe theorists. But what if I told you that clues to its existence are scattered across Polynesia, Easter Island, the Himalayas, and even deep within your DNA? What if the so-called missing link in human evolution was never biological, but spiritual? Tonight, we journey far beyond the edges of conventional history. We'll explore who the Lemurians truly were, how their civilization rose through harmony instead of conquest, and why their legacy was intentionally hidden, locked away behind dogma and denial. We'll uncover the deeper meanings behind the fall of Lemuria, why they chose to vanish, and what sacred fragments remain within us today. This is not just a story of the past, it's a message for the present, and a prophecy for the future. So take a breath, forget what you've been told, and step with me into the mist, to rediscover the forgotten song of Lemuria, and the ancient truth of your own origin. The mainstream timeline of human civilization begins around 6,000 years, Agawith, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. But for those who listen to the deeper rhythm of time, that timeline is a shadow, a veil. Before Atlantis, there was Lemuria, also known in certain traditions as Muthus. Vast continent was believed to stretch across the Pacific Ocean, connecting what we now know as Hawaii, Easter Island, and parts of Southeast Asia. But Lemuria was not defined by pyramids or palaces. It was built of vibration, not stone. A civilization where telepathy replaced language, where communion with nature was second nature. The ancient Tamil texts speak of Kumari Kandam, a sunken land south of India, lost beneath the ocean after a great flood. Hawaiian chants recall Mu as a place of ancestral power, and Tibetan lamas whisper of Shambhala's origins, tracing back to a realm that predates all earthly kingdoms. Across cultures and continents, echoes of Lemuria remain, not in textbooks but in memory, in myth, and in the metaphysical architecture of consciousness. So, why has this knowledge been buried? Because Lemuria represents something that challenges the foundation of modern thought. It speaks of a humanity that did not evolve from savagery into civility, but descended from higher states of awareness into amnesia. Esoteric traditions from theosophy to indigenous prophecies suggest that Lemurians lived in harmony with the planet's energy grids. They were attuned to the Schumann resonance, using the Earth's frequency not just for survival, but for spiritual evolution. Crystals were not ornaments, they were tools. Consciousness was not trapped in flesh, it was fluid, radiant, expansive. Philosophically, Lemuria embodies a pre-dualistic state. There was no separation between mind and matter, spirit and science, self and nature. Everything was understood as part of the same living current. And yet, something changed. A great forgetting. Whether through cataclysm, cosmic cycles, or collective choice, the Lemurians withdrew. Some say into the inner earth. Others say into the higher planes. And a few, into us. We became their legacy, their myth, their dream deferred. But fragments remain. In intuition. In déjà vu. In the unexplainable ache for a home we've never seen, but somehow remember. The suppression of Lemurian knowledge was not accidental. Because to acknowledge it is to admit that our origins are far more spiritual than scientific. That consciousness may not be a byproduct of biology but its source. That we are not fallen beings striving for the divine, but divine beings, remembering what we once knew. To understand Lemuria is not to study a map, it is to remember a frequency. The Lemurians were not defined by borders, technology, or empires. They were defined by consciousness. They were, quite literally, vessels of light-incarnated souls who chose to dwell in physical bodies while still retaining their connection to Source. Many teachings describe them as tall, graceful, with translucent skin that shimmered in moonlight. They communicated not through words, but through harmonic resonance, transmitting feeling, thought, and vision in a single breath. Their architecture was not built, it was sung into form. Their healing was not mechanical, it was energetic. But perhaps their most profound gift was remembrance. You see, the Lemurians understood something we have long forgotten. That matter is not solid. That the world we walk through is, in truth, a dream dreamed by the soul. And that every human being carries within them the full blueprint of the universe. This was not poetry to theme, it was lived reality. They trained from birth to attune their bodies like tuning forks, aligning with the natural rhythms of the earth, the moon, and the stars. They used sacred tones and light-infused breathwork to awaken dormant strands of DNA, what modern science calls junk. They knew as codes. Codes of memory, of healing, of transcendence. And they guarded these codes in the most extraordinary place. Not in temples or tablets, but in bloodlines, in dreams, in the silence between heartbeats. Some say Lemurians were the first starseed souls seeded on Earth by higher dimensional civilizations, not to conquer, but to harmonize. Not to dominate matter, but to spiritualize it. It's said that Lemuria was founded during what esoteric science calls the third root Ratia phase of humanity, when the soul was just beginning to wear the physical body like a garment. At that time, Earth was young, and the veils between dimensions were thin. The Lemurians built their cities along energy ley lines, known today as dragon lines, vast energetic rivers that still course beneath sacred sites around the world. From these crystalline nodes, they raised temples not for worship, but for alignment. Alignment with the higher self, with Gaia, with the galactic pulse. And yet, with all their spiritual refinement, the Lemurians faced a truth we all eventually do: duality. Some among them began to fragment, drawn toward denser experiences, egoic expression, and emotional sensation. Desire crept in. Fear soon followed. And with it, the illusion of separation. This marked the slow descent that would one day give rise to Atlantis, a civilization that carried Lemuria's spiritual legacy, but added the hunger for power. And as Atlantis rose, Lemuria began to sink. Not only into the oceans of the earth, but into the unconscious. A fall not of punishment, but of choice. A choice to forget so that we could remember. A choice to descend so that we could one day rise again, fully aware of our own divinity. That is the Lemurian story. Not one of loss, but of sacred sleep. And now, perhaps for the first time in eons, we are beginning to awaken. If Lemuria was merely myth, then why do its echoes persist across cultures that never touched? The Maori speak of a land to the east that sank into the sea. The Hopi recall an age when those who remembered lived in harmony before being swept away by fire and water. Tamil epics lament the submersion of Kumari Kandama continent, now believed to rest under the Indian Ocean. Even early Buddhist texts describe a primordial people who glowed with light and knew no fear. Across the globe, we find monuments of mystery: Easter Island's Moai, the Bimini Road off the coast of the Bahamas, the sunken structures of Yonaguni near Japan. These are not merely artifacts of stone, they are signatures left behind by a people who understood geometry not as math, but as language. Sacred geometry. The architecture of consciousness. The Lemurians encoded their knowledge in symbols, in vibrational patterns, in forms that bypass the rational mind and speak directly to the soul. That's why some people stand before certain mountains or oceans and feel an inexplicable sadness or joy. A sudden yearning for something they cannot name. Because the memory is still alive. Just not in your brain. In your field. Now, let's address the paradox. If Lemuria was so advanced, so spiritually attuned, how could it fall? The answer lies in conscious evolution. In every cycle, the soul must choose to remain in light, or to descend into shadow, learn through contrast, and reclaim the light from within. Lemuria chose the latter. Not all Lemurians agreed. Some retreated to the inner earth, forming the mythical cities of Agartha and Telos. Others transitioned to non-physical dimensions. And some, chose rebirth, reincarnating across millennia to carry forward the codes. And here's where things become even more intriguing. You might be one of them. Many who feel drawn to esoteric knowledge, who have always sensed that something is missing from modern life, are Lemurian soul fragments awakening. Do you feel inexplicably called to the ocean? Do you resonate with crystals, nature, energy, healing, or sound? These aren't random preferences. They are reminders. Our modern world, driven by logic and materialism, has pathologized the intuitive. It tells us to dismiss what cannot be measured, to distrust what cannot be seen. And yet, what if that's the very system designed to bury Lemurian memory? Because if we all remembered who we truly were, the world as we know it would dissolve overnight. Institutions would crumble. Hierarchies would fade. Because the real kingdom would be revealed, the one within. There are even whispers among esoteric scientists that our so-called junk DNA is actually Lemurian coding awaiting activation through light, sound, and intentional consciousness. And perhaps this activation has already begun. Modern tools like sound healing, plant medicine, breathwork, and quantum meditation are not new inventions. They are reawakenings of Lemurian technologies adapted for a species finally ready to remember. This isn't about going back. It's about bringing forward what was always within us. The Lemurians aren't lost. They're dreaming through us. Every act of compassion, every breath of awareness, every moment you choose presence over programming. You are reviving a civilization once thought drowned. Lemuria never disappeared. It transformed. And now, it returns in the hearts of those who dare to remember. If the Lemurian legacy lives on within us, then the question becomes, how do we remember? The first step is not study. It is not belief. It is stillness. Because Lemurian consciousness was not accumulated, it was received. In a world obsessed with noise, the act of pausing, of truly listening, is revolutionary. So begin with this simple ritual. 1. Earth-heart alignment, daily practice. Each morning or evening, place your bare feet on natural ground, grass, sand, soil. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. As you inhale, imagine golden light rising from the earth into your heart. As you exhale, let your awareness expand in all directions. This is not visualization. It is reconnection. With time, you may feel waves of peace, forgotten memories, or even emotional release. That's your field recalibrating, your ancient self stirring. 2. Crystalline resonance activation. Lemurians understood that crystals were more than beautiful objects, they were living libraries. Select one that calls to you: rose quartz for love, labradorite for intuition, clear quartz for clarity. Hold it in silence. Whisper your intention not as a command, but as a communion. Then listen. Keep the crystal by your bedside. It may influence your dreams. Lemurian seeds, the striated quartz crystals often found in Braziliae, particularly attuned to these frequencies. 3. Sound and breath reclamation. Use your voice. Humming, toning, chanting, not to perform, but to tune. Your body is a temple. The vibration of your own voice, especially when directed to the heart or solar plexus, can awaken dormant memory strands. Pair this with conscious breathwork. Inhale slowly for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Hold for 2. Repeat for 5-10 minutes. Over time, you may feel lightheaded, euphoric, even emotional. That's your cellular memory opening. 4. Lemurian repatterning ritual, monthly. On the night of the full moon, take a bowl of water and place it under the moonlight. Speak aloud the following invocation. By the waters of memory, by the light of forgotten stars, I awaken what was hidden. I remember who I am. Wash your hands, face, or heart area with the moon water the next morning. This is not superstition. It is symbolic entrainment, using ritual to speak directly to your subconscious. 5. Embodied compassion. Above all, Lemuria was built on unity and care. If you wish to walk the Lemurian path, begin with the simplest act: kindness. Practice heart-centered presence with strangers. Forgive quickly. Hold space without needing to fix. These are not just virtues, they are vibrational keys. Each time you choose love over reaction, you send a signal that the Lemurian code within you is active. And with enough signals across enough souls, what was once myth becomes memory. What was once lost returns. The story of Lemuria was never just about a sunken land. It is the story of a state of being, a forgotten light within the human spirit. A light that once illuminated entire civilizations. A light that now waits silently within the folds of your memory. We have traveled far in this journey. From ancient chants and star maps, to codes in our DNA, to the very breath that can open unseen doors within. And through it all, one truth whispers again and again: you are not broken. You are not fallen. You are remembering. The rise of Lemuria was not its golden age. Its fall was not its end. Because Lemuria was never about permanence, it was about resonance. A resonance that outlives continents. That survives flood and fire. That echoes in the stillness of your own heart. And today, that resonance returns. Every moment you choose awareness. Every time you slow down and feel the earth beneath you. Every time you honor your intuition, your compassion, your inner knowing, you become a vessel, a channel, a living continuation of what Lemuria began. So let the world call it myth. Let history forget. Because the real temple was never in the stone. It was in the soul. And now more than ever the soul is stirring. The dream is ending. The awakening begins. Are you listening? If this message stirred something ancient in you, don't ignore it. Subscribe, share the light, reclaim the memory.